Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for The Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. And I overall really enjoyed this issue. However, you see that, the cover is, leading you to believe that, it's Peter and MJ and we get more information on that. We don't. So, my only little quibble thing is that, even though I do like the cover, and I do like everything in the issue, it's not really giving you an idea of what's kind of going on. So, we see that this issue starts off, and Peter thinks that pretty much somebody's coming to extract money from his ass. Typical, understandable Peter reaction to that, because a lot of people try and do that. But we find out that Norman has come to ask him to do something. And this was an interesting kind of exchange. You're like, what's going on? Bringing up that he could never convert his potential into currency, and he has a job for him. And evidently he gave him help at some point. So Norman's kind of using this to kind of get back at him. Well, not get back at him, but tit for tat kind of deal. Saying that you could almost owe me. And let's see here. He says he's a changed man, no matter how unscientific the circumstances. And then that says that it was revealed in Amazing Spider-Man 851. So it does at least give you a call back to that. I'm like, oh, okay. And that he's supposed to meet somewhere at 2:30 this afternoon. And we find out that he pretty much wants him to babysit his grandkids, Stanley and Normie. It's like, oh, okay. One of the kids is like, hey, Grandpa says you're so smart it makes you dumb. And that Liz would like them back at 5, and that he'll do great. And Peter's just like, what the fucking shit? So, yeah, I was like, okay, that is definitely a shitty kind of scenario to have, Peter be put in. So hopefully we'll learn more about, if Norman's actually changed or not, and what kind of help he gave Peter for whatever kind of scenario that, other people wouldn't help him for. So that'll be kind of cool. We shift over to Harlem at the 114th Street Safe House, and we see that Janice comes to check in on Tombstone, and that she's flying around in her outfit and everything. She offers to help him in this, and he's like, let me handle it. And she's pretty much bringing up the fact that he thinks she's a kid, and that I'm not staying out of a war because you're afraid I'm going to get hurt. And the thing is, that's not it for Tombstone. He's like, listen, he tried to kind of separate his kind of responsibilities and everything. He wanted to be her dad. However, what he's got to do for this war is not going to be that dad. So I do find that as a pretty interesting and kind of cool character distinction. So it's like, damn, that's actually them having a pretty good kind of conversation. She's like, listen, I want to help you with this. I'm not a kid, and I don't care that you're afraid that I get hurt. But Tombstone's like, no, I know you can handle yourself, but you'd see a side of me that I don't want you to see. That is not going to be your dad. And she understands that and decides to go. And then we see him going into a bathroom and removing evidently the caps that had been put on his teeth that he said was $2,000 a tooth, and that he is pretty much set up for this. He's like, I'm going to do this my way. Let's see here. Then Peter pretty much gives Norman the lowdown that the kids were great. They did stuff with construction paper and stuff. Did stuff with pudding as well. And then Peter's like, alright, I'm going to clock in as Spider-Man. Check in on Tombstone. And then as he's putting on his mask, he finds out that one of the kids put pudding in his mask. It's like, yep, Parker Luck right there. And we shift over to the Harlem docks. Let's see here. We see the Rabbit Lady and Kareem pretty much dealing with what they're going for, pretty much utilizing old kind of Spidey villain kind of things as they're trying to get everything set up. And then Peter's like, yeah, it's not as he slams in. And that's a really nice Spidey shot there. I just really appreciate that because it's just got a nice amount of detail, and it just shows him hanging out and doing stuff. And it's funny, Rabbit Lady's like, light him up, but Peter doesn't have his spider sense going up. He's like, what the hell? And Kareem's like, I'm not doing it. He saved my ass. I'm not doing it. So she's like, all right, you're useless. And she tries to get info out of Peter of how he was able to find them. But it's like, he's like, powers of deduction. But he uses Spidey Tracer on him. And she, of course, comments on the fact that he smells like pudding. And he wants to know where Tombstone is. And let's see. She's pretty much trying to tell him to back off. You don't want to find Tombstone. And let's see. He then tries to pretty much make a deal with him, like, Tombstone's the one that matters. I could make a deal or whatnot. Leave you two. And then he pretty much is able to talk him into being like, listen, I got some pull, so let's make a deal. You know where Tombstone is. I go after him and leave you two. And if he takes me down, you two are free to go. And, but at least you have a head start. And she, of course, tells him the info. And then he's like, hey, I'm even going to throw in a thwip as he then webs him up and just goes off. And then Kareem's like, hey, are you worried about selling out Tombstone? What makes you think I did? It's like, we'll see how this goes. Go over to the Upper East Side. We see Crime Master pretty much is utilizing to sell weapons on kind of both sides as Tombstone comes in to be like, shit. And he, of course, brings up the meeting with Rose. And the thing is, he's acknowledged Rose as a seat at the table. He comes for that person because he was trying to make sure that Rose didn't have a seat at the table. And his logic was not that unsound for why Rose shouldn't have a seat at the table. You don't just come in and be like, I've got these territories, or not. It's with the way these guys operate, these rules make sense to them. And he's like, yep, this is me coming for you. Call your men. Bring everybody in. This is gonna be loud. And then we see that Spidey is pretty much going to the Upper East Side, commenting that he's not really up here because he doesn't have money. Getting another classic Spidey shot there. And he then sees that Tombstone is, like, sitting in a truck, and he's like, damn, did I miss the party? And then Tombstone's pretty much commenting on the fact that he forgot how exhausting this kind of work was. And he was asking if Parker gave him the message, that he's, like, reasserting himself. And Spidey's like, what? You're saying this is all my fault? Nah, I needed the guns. Took 2 truckloads already. Let's see. Gonna make an example of Crime Master. And Spidey's like, I'm not gonna let that happen. And he starts fighting him. And I really like these fighting sequences because it shows a lot of kind of cool movement and actual kind of progression. And Spidey's fighting style. You always kind of want that. And it's always difficult to kind of find that balance within a comic book. But when you really get that good balance, it's really kind of cool. And this one's one of them. And Peter's just pretty much calling him like, what's so funny? You wanted to teach me a lesson. And they start kind of fighting out, and it looks like Peter is got him down, but it was actually going more in Tombstone's favor, as they then have these hydraulics with the walls closing in to minimize Spidey's movements and to give Tombstone more of his advantage for his brawler kind of tactics. Spidey can take his hits and everything like that, but if you kind of limit his acrobatic mobility and then force yourself into a more kind of traditional kind of close quarters combat confrontation, it kind of limits his stuff, and depending upon who the kind of villain is, if they've got their strength in a certain kind of way and can utilize that strength and leverage, it does put Spidey in the back foot. And it's just like, damn, that's actually a smart kind of thing. And Spidey keeps trying to kind of like get out of it, but he takes the wind out of him with one of his punches, and then he's out of room, and we see Tombstone pretty much giving him a bear hug, and his ribs start cracking, he smiles, and then he passes out. And then we see that they go back to pretty much where Spidey was interrogating Rabbit Lady and Kareem, and then that's where the issue closes. So Spidey is in a very bad spot here. It'll be interesting to see what Tombstone has planned for him, because this, even though it is a simplistic plan, it worked for Tombstone because he drew Spidey in, executed his plan, and was able to knock him out pretty effectively. And it's just like, okay, Peter, that he maybe it's not like that his head wasn't in the game, but he wasn't thinking what could potentially be going on with that van, and that kind of led to him getting captured like this. So we'll have to see how Spidey's able to kind of get out of this, and what actually Tombstone has in store for him, because he wanted to teach him a lesson or whatnot, and there are various kind of lessons that he could teach Peter, and it could be violent and trying to kill him or try and maim him or whatnot, or various other kind of psychological kind of things that he could be doing. Never mind the fact that he's got to deal with everybody pretty much being pissed at him for something, and that whatever that something is, he got Norman to help him. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes off, but I really enjoyed this issue because it kind of just keep going on to introduce us to the status quo of what's going on with Peter, while also advancing the plot. You always have to watch out for that kind of thing, because I do like world building of understanding the situation of a character, but you always kind of want to balance that to where the point's like, nothing really happened that issue. We got information on Norman, his grandkids, Peter having a potential job of pretty much babysitting the grandkids, and then Peter trying to look in what Tombstone's doing, and we see Tombstone's moves, his motivations, and what he's trying to do to protect what's his. So I overall kind of like that stuff because it matched really well of giving us world stuff, character stuff, plot advancement, and action that was pretty informative of how our characters interact and how they utilize themselves. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.